Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Lane Soup. I'm truly excited to have our guest on today, Miss Melita Long. How are you doing today, Ms. Long?
Very good, thanks, Dexter.
Thanks for coming on. I'm really excited because you're a career coach and your whole philosophy, excuse me, your whole philosophy is about choosing your life's path, your career on purpose, and how a lot of people just kind of fall into their careers. And your goal is to help people become healthier, happier, wealthier. Tell us a little bit about how you got into becoming a career coach.
So most people who become career coaches have had other professions first. In my case, I was working in corporate marketing. I did that for about 7 years. I worked originally from New Zealand. I worked in New Zealand, Australia, and in the UK, in London. And I was working in financial services marketing at the time. And I had a couple of things happen that really made me stop and question why I was doing what I was doing and if it was, in fact, the right career for me. I had a significant values clash in my job. I was asked to endorse something in my work time that I was actually against in my personal life. And that really made me stop and think about values. So I was right on the cusp of what's referred to in career coaching as a quarter-life career crisis. Many people have heard of a midlife career crisis, but some of us can't wait until midlife to have our change of heart. So I was a bit early, and the quarter-life career crisis typically occurs sometime between 25 and 35, but really was a peak time of between 28 and 32. And I was just about 30 when I had that. So it made me stop and reevaluate what was important to me. And I've since found this to be a consistent theme with people who have a quarter-life career crisis. They've been in their careers now 7 to 10 years, maybe 5, and it's not what they were expecting. It's not really quite what it was cracked up to be. And that's also a time when people become very aware of their values. And when you have a values clash at work, something actually goes against the grain for you, that's a really strong indicator to make a change. And that was the case for me. So I actually worked with another coach who's gone on to do great things and went through the process of identifying what it was that I really wanted to do and why and what was possible. And so out of that process, I realized that my purpose in life was to help other people find their purpose. And whilst I didn't name my business Purpose and Purpose straight away, it's a name that really resonates with me.
Wow, I love that. Before we dive into exactly what one does as a career coach, why do you think people stay so long in careers and in jobs, professions that they don't particularly care for?
So I think this is where psychology sort of comes into it a bit as well. Most human beings are pretty afraid of change. Change can be scary, right? People often prefer to stay with the devil they know rather than the one that they don't. And I have recognized for a long time that people often don't make a move until the pain of the current situation outweighs their fear of the unknown. And so it's helping people get past that basic sort of fundamental fear that people have of doing something different. And there's a lot of reasons why people may have those concerns. They don't know if it's going to work out. They're afraid of losing their income or, decreasing their income. They sometimes may be caught in what I call the monkey trap. Have you heard of the concept of the monkey trap?
No, I've never heard of that.
Right. Okay. So I'm not sure really why anyone would want to catch monkeys, or hurt monkeys. So imagine that this glass of water doesn't have water in it, but it has nuts or bananas or something else that monkeys want. And it's got a tight neck on it in a bigger part down the bottom. So to catch a monkey, what they would do is they'd put nuts or bananas down the bottom, and the monkey would reach their hand in and grab the nuts, right? But when they went to pull their hand out, They couldn't, they were stuck, right? And so the monkey was faced with the choice. Do I keep holding on to the nuts that I really want, or do I escape? Now, often, monkeys don't really think that far in advance, but they would hold on to the nuts. And then the hunter would come along, bop them on the head and bite my monkey. Right? So sometimes as people, we can be a little bit like the monkey in the monkey trap. We're holding on to the goodies. Now, those goodies could be a stable job. They could be a high salary. You know, the golden handcuffs is another way to describe it. And it could be great perks. There's something holding us in that job. And people are afraid of giving that up and stepping into the unknown.
Wow.
That can be a really big part of it. And often, you know, people over the years, I've been doing this for 22 years now, and people often say to me, Melita, I want you to tell me what to do with what I should do with my life. And I say, look, there's two problems with that particular approach. One is I don't like the word should. Should implies obligation, and obligation usually comes from somebody else. And I like to help people find out what they want to do, what's really exciting for them. So the other thing is I don't like to tell anybody to do anything. I see my role as a career coach as helping people find the answers that are actually already within them. And very simply, the best way to do that, well, the easiest way is I say to people, all you need to tell me is what you like and what you don't like. And the rest we can figure out through the process. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And it's so interesting. I had actually heard a very similar story for the monkey trap. I had never heard it called the monkey trap before, but it's the same thing with the cactus and a monkey sticks his hand in to get the salt out or something like that. But it's so fascinating when you talk about people being afraid of change, moving on, trying something different. And this idea of these golden handcuffs, because many times our livelihood, everything that really makes our personal worlds go round is tied to our jobs, our careers. And because we've been trapped in that situation for so long, we might not know what our other preferences are. We might not know the things that we like or don't like. So how do you really help someone come to grips with or realize the things that they like? And how do you translate that into a new job, career, profession?
Okay, so fundamentally people do still like what they like and they don't like. But it's true that people can be in a situation, if they've been stuck in a situation for quite a period of time, then they can feel a little bit trapped by that, and they can feel like they don't have anything else that they can do. I've had a number of people over the years say to me, I think I'm unemployable, which is never true. The thing is, it's helping people actually get back to who they are at their core self. And I guess you could compare that to, and obviously I like talking in analogies quite a lot, you'll pick up on that. You know, when Michelangelo sculpted David, he described it as, I just chipped away the pieces that weren't David, and that's what was left. And in many ways, career coaching is a bit like that too. It's peeling away the doubts and the uncertainties and actually getting to the core of who the person is. And so it's looking at those key factors that are really important for an individual. That includes looking at their values, right? So what's important to them? What is actually at the core of who they are? And typically that will come down to one or two or even three really core values that they cannot compromise on. I'm working at the moment with a detective who's been in the police force for 24 years. She's put up with a lot. She's got PTSD as a result of that. As you can imagine, things that can't be unseen. She's put up with bullying, harassment, all sorts of things. But the last straw for her was when her integrity was questioned. So that is her core value. Right? There are other values as well, like fairness and being recognised for her competence. But actually the integrity was the core one. When a core value is compromised, that is often when people will just up and leave. That will be the final straw for them. Motivations are really important. What actually motivates you? So a lot of people say it is a motivator, but usually there's something else that sits behind that. Yes, money is very important, absolutely. I help my clients to earn money all the time, right? It's something I take a lot of pride in and really enjoy. But there are other things that sit underneath it. It might be status, it might be security, it might be lifestyle. There are a whole lot of motivations. Personality is a factor. So, what people's innate preferences are, what they need to feel satisfied, their work environment, their strengths. I love a strengths-based approach. And recently completed, I'm just trying to see if I've got the cards handy. I've recently completed a strengths-based training course, which looks at not just your realized strengths, but also the ones that are learned behaviors and the ones that you're not getting to realize at the moment. That's important too, because when we're changing careers at any point, we're not starting from zero. We're always starting from a base of having experience. And those experiences can be carried through into that new career. What are some other key things? Experiences, obviously, skills, competencies, similar to strengths. There are so many different facets that make up the sort of the jigsaw puzzle of your new career. And these are the pieces of the puzzle that I help you put together. And yes, I am a bit of a jigsaw nerd as well.
I love that. I do love a good puzzle. But Melita, when we're sitting down and you're talking to someone and we're trying to help them to discover what their core values are, you have a person that comes to you fed up, arms in the air. How do you help them to see that the problem was an integrity issue, that it was a motivation issue, that it was perhaps a self-service issue? How do you translate someone's raw emotion into a word that can be definable, followed, and used to help them find a new career path?
Open your mind and expand your consciousness. Welcome to Chakra Wonders, where style meets soul. Designed to uplift your energy and inspire your path to higher awareness. Every piece is a reflection of the cosmos and the power within you. Explore our collection and discover what resonates with your soul. Visit chakrawonders.com and step into conscious living. Chakra Wonders, conscious style for a conscious world.
Sometimes if people are particularly unclear or if they've been in a very negative environment, and let's face it, we spend more waking hours in our job than we do with our partners, with our families, in any other area of our life, aside from sleeping. But in terms of waking hours, we're spending most of that at work. So it has the biggest single impact on our mental health, our emotional health, and even our physical health. So if people have been stuck in an environment that's been very negative and they can't see the wood for the trees, sometimes it's easier to start with that negative and flip it. So I do a job from hell, job from heaven activity. So it can be quite cathartic to just write down all the things that you've ever disliked about any job that you've ever had, particularly the current one. And that's the job from hell. And then we flip it together as the positive opposite and look at the job from heaven. And often what that's particularly focused on is the work environment and the content of the work that they want to be doing. So that's one way we can start if people are really stuck. But I use a lot of activities. I use a lot of online activities. I do most of my work via Zoom. So I work with clients all over the world. Whilst I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, I work with clients all over Australia, New Zealand, the UK. I've worked with clients in South Africa, India, the States, all over. So geography is not really a boundary. There are so many fantastic online assessment tools that I can use. I use one called Harrison, which is an online assessment tool. There's another one called Morrisby, which is used widely at both secondary and for adults as well. And then I've, as I said, strengths-based training, all sorts of other assessments. So the key thing here for people to know is it's not a test. There's no pass or fail, right? There's no getting it wrong. It's just what's right for you. That's the key distinction. So it's very person-centered. It's very much led by the individual. My role really is to guide people through that process and also provide a sounding board and sometimes a mirror to help them see perhaps what are some blind spots for them. And through that also looking at opportunities. And what people can do, online tests themselves, sometimes 1 + 1 does not equal 2. Sometimes the results of a career test may or may not be appropriate or may not provide the best opportunities. Sometimes it's reading between the lines. It's using experience of working with a lot of people and recognising whilst a certain career may not have been suggested, sure about something else. What about something different? And at times I've even helped my clients to create a brand new career, like a vintage career that didn't exist before, but usually in the form of their own, or to start being self-employed. And that's something to as well. In terms of overcoming sort of those internal blocks that people often experience, I have a range of sort of mindset tools that I help people with, and what I refer to as closed-up processes to help people tap more into the subconscious mind that's sort of the iceberg that sits underneath, and help people to resolve some of those things.
Yeah, I love that so much. I love how you peel apart the layer. You talk a lot about the layers of life and reality on the show, and just pulling back the layers of how not just your workplace can help you have a happier, a wealthier life, but a healthier one as well. I want to really dive into the health aspects and the importance of finding out your passions and following them. What are some of the other health benefits that go along with changing careers and learning what you really like to do?
So I have seen all sorts of health challenges that people are experiencing as a result of their careers. So of being in the wrong career and the wrong job. I've seen clients a lot of people can be stressed on a Sunday night before they're going to work on a Monday morning. In extreme cases, I've seen clients who are physically throwing up before going to work. Like, that's pretty extreme. Like, that's how much they did not want to go to that job. I've seen people have a range of different stress-based disorders, right? So these can be things including anxiety attacks, insomnia, anything that's affecting us emotionally can play out in our physical body. This is something that is talked about by quite a number of people far more knowledgeable about the human body than me. But there's quite a lot of different aspects to it. People have also said that, when they're in a bad job and they're stressed, they're overworking, they're not sleeping properly, they're not eating properly, they're not having time out, they're not exercising properly. They're also expressing that they're having challenging relationships with their family or their partner because that they're stressed and they're suffering, and it causes their relationships to suffer as well. So this is what I mean about the health aspect. Our job does have the single biggest impact on quality of life.
Wow.
Obviously, that's what and they've got a new career, they've got a new job, that they're happier in themselves, right? And I'm sure that you've got friends or family members who've seen this for yourself, that people have been in the wrong job and then they get into a new job. It's like they're a different person, that they're happier, they're smiling more, they're probably sleeping better, they're probably much more fun to be around. And, I've had people saying to me, oh, my husband said, he's so happy he's got his wife back. Or sometimes I have the wives calling on behalf of their husbands, I've got my husband back. So, this is sort of kind of that health aspect as well. And sometimes when people have been in a particularly negative environment for a long period of time, like the detective I'm working with, that the physical ramifications of that can be quite severe, right? So, we're talking extreme anxiety and sometimes even depression can come about as a result of working in that environment. So getting out of that can help people to be in a much, much better space, which is something I really enjoy.
I love that so much. We have so many people that come to the show and feel like they kind of miss their chance. They are not at a place in their lives where they can do something different or they can move on. What would you say to somebody who feels as if, as you said earlier, they're not hireable or they've been working in one professional field for so long, say a doctor or a lawyer, they've been working in this field for so long, how did they move on to something different?
Okay, so the first thing I'd say is it's never too late to make a career change. There's only one time that's too late. It's when you're dead. Right? Other than that, it's not too late. I've worked with clients right up until their 70s, right? The world of work has changed, and based on how things have changed in a lot of different professions and just the world of work generally, most people are going to be working into their 70s, right? Unless they physically aren't able or financially don't need to. But most of us will be working well through our 60s and into our 70s. I certainly plan to. I was at a career conference 10 years ago, and 3 of the presenters were in the 80s and still working by choice. Right? So I find that very inspiring. Not everybody may, but I do. I think when you enjoy what you do, it makes it a lot easier. I'll give you an example of a client I worked with years ago, a guy called Steve. And he was a very smart man, but he'd had a number of things happen at the same time, and it put him into a really bad space. He'd been a laboratory manager, and then he was made redundant, and his marriage broke up at the same time, and that put him into quite a negative space. As a result, he'd ended up working as pretty much a taxi driver. In fact, he was a taxi driver for drunk people, specifically, what they call it, a dollar driver service, where people could call up a driver, they would get dropped off, drive the person home in their own car, and then get picked up by their colleague for the driver to go back for the next job. And I recognised very early on that Steve was a really smart guy, and he needed something more intellectually challenging. I mean, more than Sudokus. So we went through the process. We used a lot of activities. In those days, I was working mostly face-to-face and using card sorts. Card sorts have, I don't know if you can see them, but this one here, this is from Modella, Motivated Skills. But he was one of the presenters in the 80s. And so Steve and I worked through a whole lot of different activities, and it became really clear that what he was passionate about was history. He loved history, in fact, specifically Second World War history, to the point where he taught himself German and Russian so he could read their text on what happened in the Second World War, which is quite interesting. And he was in his, within the late 40s. So many people would say, go to the hill, that can change careers at that time. But we worked out and we created a process for him to actually go back to university, to retrain to become a history lecturer. I joked that he already had the beard, so, he fitted right in. And he was able to use his experience as a laboratory manager to work as a tutor in the science labs as a form of employment while he was studying. And he did that. He moved cities, he found a new partner. It all fell into place for him, and he was so happy. And, the thing to consider is if we're based on the assumption that we'll be working through till we're 70, and most people start work when we're about 20-ish, at 45, which is, I think, around the age that Steve was, you've worked 25 years, but you've still got another 25 years of working life ahead of you. So it's well worth making a change at that point.
Yeah. Wow. I love that so much. And I 100% agree with you. I feel that it's never too late to make a change and do something a little bit different in life. When it comes to the transition itself, is there a average time period you notice that it takes a person from the day that they come to you to moving to their new career?
It depends from person to person, but I would say that the process that I like to take people through, change doesn't happen overnight, particularly if somebody has been entrenched in a career for some time, and we need to work through the different processes. I've seen changes, and it depends on what they're moving from and to, and how different that is and how many transferable skills they can carry across. But I've seen people make changes within 6 months. Interestingly, and as most people, even when they're making a career change, within a 2-year period, they have made the career change. Often it's much sooner than that, but even within 2 years, they haven't lost money. They're actually usually earning, because part of the criteria that we'll look at is, well, what do you need to earn in your career to make sure that what you're moving from what you're moving to is going to be an improvement. So most people within 2 years are earning they did in their old career. And because they're taking transferable skills and experience and competencies with them, they're not starting from zero. It's actually also very rare that people will need to go back to university and do a 3 or 4 year degree. Most people, once they already have a degree, can do postgraduate study, which they can complete in as little as 6 months, depending on what they're choosing, or even 2 years part-time. It's very, very rare that people have to go completely back to the drawing board, as it were.